everybody to our Spark debate this evening, and I welcome ginabale. Gina and I have known each other a long time, having exhibited at various shows together in the past, and Gina was at Childcare Expo just this weekend. And we're here tonight to talk about creativity and imagination and why that's important in the early years. And we're very happy to listen to you on the chat. So please type in your comments and your questions, because we are going to be guided by you. It's your debate, although obviously we've got things that we could talk about. So I'd like to just start off, Gina. Today, I had to have my eyes tested, and I went into the charity shops on my way back home, because I walked to the opticians. And some of the charity shops were really well displayed. They were really creative, and they had really used their imagination in how to set the shelves up. I'm only interested in bric-a-brac. And I just thought that really ties in with what we're talking about this evening, because whoever was creative and imaginative in laying out the shelves obviously had some of that great practice in early years.
Oh, somebody's joining in, Catherine. Let me move him out. It's like moving him out. Do apologise.
Okay, I have a dog here and a cat. Mine are very well behaved.
I didn't know he was even there. And then he just barked. Oops. Sorry.
That's all right. No worries. So did you hear that? I was talking about how the shelves were in the charity shop and how they'd use their imagination.
Good.
And being an employer, creativity and imagination for nursery practitioners, having those skills are really important. You know, I've been in a situation where I pulled my hair out when the home corner has been changed to a garage or an optician's or a post office, but the staff really haven't used their creativity or imagination in how they've displayed it for the children even.
Yeah. No.
You know,
I do have to say, I think imagination is disappearing.
Well,
and it's when you see it as you saw it today, it stood out.
Yes.
So when you do see it, it really, really does stand out. And I think that's really, really sad. And I was actually talking to a couple of people within a council today talking about it, and they were agreeing as well that it is starting to disappear because parents just put the children in front of the tablet. They don't, obviously, because of the way life is now, it's very difficult to let your children go out and be free and have fun because they're always being watched. They need to be looked after. They've lost that freedom, creativity, and experiential learnings. All of these things are we had as children. I still remember being able to go outside and run in the beach, run in the woods, disappear for the whole day, no mobile phones, nothing. And I'm still alive. Just
the other thing I think that children are entertained. You know, they I'm not talking about in nursery or preschool, but I'm talking about by parents. So yes, they're put in front of the screens to, you know, so the parents can get on, but they're also taken to various things. So, you know, they go to ballet, or they have music classes and clubs and things, sports clubs and things, and they're actually not left to their own devices.
No. They don't know how to be bored. Being bored is an amazing thing, because that means they then have to be resilient. They have to start thinking about things that they can do to keep themselves occupied. And it's also nice actually just to do nothing and actually just look at the world around them, just to lie. I still remember lying on my back, looking at clouds, seeing what animals I could see in the clouds and the shapes. And I actually still do that. And I don't know. I haven't seen children doing that for a while. not that I'd go and ask them what they're doing if they're lying on their back, staring at the sky, but all these things. And that is because we had the time, we were left to our own devices. Children, I do feel sometimes, if they're just being ferried from one activity to another activity, they don't actually have the time to de-stress, build a relationship with family members, because they're literally just going from one place to the other. And
of course they're being organized during that time, that wherever they're being ferried to.
Absolutely.
As well, aren't they?
And no time for freedom, for a child-led activity, something that they're interested in. They're always being told what they have to be doing, what exactly they're doing, their tennis lesson, their dance lesson. They are being told exactly what to do. There is no time for them to be free, to be curious, to look at and discover their own environment around them. They are, you do see it a lot, and it is quite sad. And I do.
However, go on, carry on.
Parents really do feel that they're doing the best for their children. I mean, I was guilty of it as well. Absolutely guilty of it when my daughter was younger, because I thought she wanted to do this, she wanted to do that. I sent her off to these maths classes, these ballet lessons. I was thinking, no, I realized she needs to have time to do nothing. So,
but even I was just going to say, on my school reports, one of the many negative things I said was, though that I didn't try at school, I really did try, was that I was a daydreamer.
That's great.
And I can remember being told off by my parents because that was on my report. I mean, it was a negative thing. You've got to listen to the teacher.
Yeah.
But actually, children need time to think, don't they? And,
absolutely. To process. They need that time to process things, because otherwise they're bombarded and they don't get that time. Yeah. And that's really important for them.
And we need to remember in early years that the experiences the children are having with us is actually influencing the rest of their life. It's the blueprint for the rest of their lives. So
absolutely,
if we're not encouraging that. Now, being a nursery owner and employing, I had 53 staff at one point. I know that there's an awful lot of pressure put on the staff to be doing things. They can't. A lot of time is spent with them doing things, and they perhaps feel guilty about sitting back and watching and letting things evolve by themselves, without getting in there, stuck in there, involved.
Yeah.
Which is something I think we need to think about, that we don't always have to be doing things with children. It's about facilitating things in my book.
No. As I remember, adults are just the same as children. They need time as well to see, to think, to assess what's happening, what the children are engaged with and interested in. If they're always doing things, they're never going to see that. And actually observing is an amazing skill to have, the observation skills, and they need that time to know that just sitting there watching isn't doing nothing.
No, and actually, if you sit and watch, then you're probably going to facilitate the play in a better way, because you'll have a better understanding of what the child is interested in.
Yeah.
I mean, you should have an idea of what you're hoping the child's going to learn, but you can do that through their interests and facilitate that in a better way. So in my boring post office, then maybe, the practitioners can watch and introduce something into the post office that actually interests the child. It might not have anything to do with the post office. It could be something completely different, but something that will interest the child, and the post office may evolve into something completely different because of it.
Yes. No, I still remember actually my posting games. I do remember that. Posting letters. I used to love posting letters, airmail letters, creating all these different things, and just how are you going to giving them different size parcels and things to shape and to wrap up, to post. That's quite a good fun thing as well for them. keep them
Yeah,
occupied
absolutely.
for hours and hours, all those different wonderful skills that they're going to learn. And for the teacher to sit to observe and see what the children do and how
Yeah.
and what play they're doing. And you can see what's going on at home as well, because I was speaking to, when I was in a setting, and she was telling me that they were watching the children, and one of them picked up a teddy bear, put a collar, basically put a collar and lead, and was walking it around the room. And then they discovered they'd just got a new pet. So then all the children started following. They all started in this role play, and they actually just left the children. They observed them, they watched, and they learned so much about what is happening at home with the child and the family. And I think that's so lovely to see. Okay, yes, every single creature and toy and resource in that room had a lead and collar by the end of the day.
The other thing I was thinking when, building up to this evening, was that the 7 areas of learning, creative arts and design, are the last area of learning.
It should be top. Creativity is number one. There's no point in learning without creativity.
I just think that it actually falls into so many areas of learning naturally. And I perhaps think that understanding of the world should be the last one on the list, personally, because I think everything we do is around understanding the world around us, whether it be learning how to wash our hands in personal, social, emotional development, whether it's climbing a climbing frame.
Creative ways of climbing a climbing frame, lots of different ways of foaming it up, just washing between your fingers.
but creativity and imagination is different. Now I want to ask about, I want to just inform, or my understanding. Maria Montessori felt that children should learn concrete things first. So they should learn what a real cup is, and then they would learn what a plastic cup is, and then they would learn what a miniature cup is, and for a doll set, for example. And imaginative stories such as Thomas the Tank and books about fairies and superheroes, actually, we wouldn't find in my nurseries for that reason. So how do you feel about that, Gina?
Well, I think sort of going through that authentic learning route, the superheroes are real to them. They have them at home. Therefore, they will want them in their setting because that makes them feel comfortable. That is their world. That is their environment. Yes, completely agree. Learning about real things, the concrete, you've got the pre-concrete, but also having the imagination, that bridge between the real and the imaginary world, actually helps them understand more about the real world. All the different things that you can do with that cup, that's the imagination side that will come into it. And then there's the imagination of how do we get from a cup made out of pottery to a plastic one. Just there's so many things that the imagination is really important. I heard that some nurseries don't like things like, I won't say a brand name, certain TV programs, these creatures that they have everywhere coming into their setting because it doesn't fit with the ethos. And I was speaking to the managers, and actually that is their life, that's their world, their environment.
I agree. I do agree with that. And we would never stop a child being a superhero. We might.
It's great for emotions because they have their superhero moment to help build their confidence as that Superman pose. You stand there. We see children do that if they're going to do something they're feeling a bit anxious about. We go superhero pose and off we go. Everything's going to be fine. With slightly older children, they do love doing, and you see them doing that. Older children doing that before they do exams as well, to give them that confidence. It does.
Well, don't we? Well, and do we do too, don't we?
Yes,
when
of course.
we raise ourselves to the challenge physically to go and do something.
Yeah, we get that Superman. We're off. It's Yes, absolutely. Completely agree with real play with real things. I'm not saying imagination is everything. Well, it is, because actually everything that you're holding, everything that Maria Montessori wanted the children to have, those real cups and saucers and plates, those all came out of someone's imagination. That's what you forget, that came out of someone's imagination. Everything that we see in our world that hasn't been made through nature is from somebody's imagination. Without imagination, we would not have the world that we know today. We need more imagination to make it better. So that's how important it is. You wouldn't have, the science wouldn't be there without the engineering, the maths, without the imagination to go to ask these questions, to delve into this. What would happen if, why, how, when? And that is why imagination is so important. And it's really sad when sometimes, as you say, it is dismissed, it's put down at the bottom, when actually it is a thing that engages children, and that's how they start to learn, from their imagination, because they're engaged, they're interested, they want to find out how this is made, how we pull it apart, how we put it back together. That's all imagination. Really, really important. I get a bit passionate about that. I get a bit grumpy when people go, oh no, it's not important. It's like,
when I first opened my nurseries in 1985, we had parents who didn't really want their children, they didn't understand what play was. I mean, that has changed over the years. And they didn't see the value in it. And actually, a lot of the practitioners didn't see the value in it either in those days. But you know, having an imagination is what children will need when they go to write that creative story at 10, 11, 12.
Yeah, the BBC 500 words. I was watching that the other day. I was thinking, that's all imagination. Amazing. Some of these things that they were giving them, the ideas, and we wouldn't have anything, you know.
I still think though that it has, you have agreed with me, but I still think it needs to be built onto real life things. Okay, we can use a cup and we can be imaginative. We can use the cup in a way that we see the child's parents using it, you know, make cups of tea and washing up and what have you. And
that's we can use role play.
And then we would use the cup maybe to plant seeds in, or I'm literally thinking at the top of my head here, put on a doweling, you know, put a cup on each doweling, make pattern. You could make patterns with cups if you had different colors. Before encouraging not necessarily superhero play, but encouraging things that are not real, like fairies.
I think fairies are real, Catherine. How can you say that? Of course they're real. But
how much money did you lose on the tooth fairy?
I know. Yes. All fairy tales and mythology come from something. They come from somewhere. So there is somewhere in there is an element of truth, because those mythologies, those stories, those fairy tales are the same the world over, which is very interesting.
And actually, they have a place to play. And I think they are really, really valuable for children, particularly the ones that, I mean, most of them finish in a good place. And for children who are experiencing trauma in their lives, to have a fairy story when they're a bit older, I would say primary school, to have a fairy story or a fable read to them is a really good thing. All right. I just have an issue with it with the little ones, when, you know, they don't really understand cultures and different, like, you know, that people live with different languages and they do different festivals, and you know, they don't have an understanding of the world, and suddenly we're talking about fairies and
you have to bring it in,
and Percy the pig.
Yeah, but it has to be appropriate, because obviously they will see Peppa the Pig and Thomas the Tank Engine, because they'll see that on TV.
Yeah.
They see it in the shops, they see it everywhere. But how I like to introduce the imagination, and I feel this is really quite important, and it links beautifully with authentic learning, I've had lots of discussions about this, is, for example, we're having this Arctic blast. And what's in the Arctic? The North Pole. So you can tell the children, you can introduce them to the concept of the North Pole. It's a very difficult concept because the North Pole is always changing. It's always in a different place. So you can talk about the North Pole, you can show them pictures of the Arctic, you can show them pictures of polar bears, you can show them pictures of the indigenous people, and all of these things, all those wonderful science experiments, the blubber, the polar bear's paws. That is imagination, but it's also very real. Yes, 99% of the children that we ever teach will never, ever go to the North Pole, but they will experience the North Pole.
I don't have a problem with any of that at all.
Yeah,
I think
but they are all fairy stories. You link them into that. You have characters and creatures that aren't real, but they will experience versions of that. I mean, just trying to think. As long as we don't do the grim fairy tales, they are a bit scary. Those I did have as a child. Those still terrify me to this day. Okay. I was always very good, because some of those stories were very, very horrible. If you did things that were not good,
when you were naughty.
Yes, if you didn't behave as you should, then I always remembered my grim fairy tales. Yes, but no, yes, but all children love things that are magical. It's like their teddy bears, and the toys they have, they are real to them. What is the difference in that to a fairy?
Because
there isn't anything. We accept this as a part of their development.
Except I think we as adults, we introduce these things. I mean, yes, we introduce a teddy bear as well, but I just think a teddy bear is more like a cup. A fairy is something that you can't actually touch and hold.
But they can see them in their mind's eye. They can see them. Yeah. I was in a setting, I was doing dinosaurs. We had pterodactyls flying around. And before I was leaving, they all started shouting because there were pterodactyls sitting on top of the lights in the nursery. And they were about to poop on us. And they actually saw them. And I was like, oh my goodness, because that is real imagination. You don't want to suppress that. I know that people will say that's not real, that's not authentic, but actually that gives them that freedom, that confidence to be creative. And if you accept it and allow them to believe in fairies, allow them to believe in this, as they get older, they will start to know what's real, what's not. But if you take it away from them, what do you have? Boring and grey.
Well, I don't think it's about taking it away. I think it's about using the real stuff, and if they introduce the fairies, then fair enough. I just don't, as a practitioner.
So how will they know about the fairies if no one's told them about fairies?
Well, because they'll get them from the TV, and they'll get it from home and what have you. And this is the cat coming to join me.
Well, you've got the cat.
He often comes to a Spark debate.
But all the books and the stories we read, everything that we read the children, all those books, those are not real.
Yes.
Yet it's accepted to read those stories.
Generally it's about real things that they've experienced in some way.
Goldilocks and the Three Bears?
Yeah, but I wouldn't, me personally, I would read that story, but it wouldn't be one that would be read regularly.
I know, but all of
if I did Goldilocks and Three Bears, it would be about maths and sizes of bowls and chairs and and counting to three,
and that's where the imagination comes in. Because if you're doing something like that, you link, as I say, it's a bridge between the imaginary and the real world. If you engage them through imagination, they are more engaged and they are going to be ready to learn about the real world in a way that's right for them, because so the bears are real. This is real to them. It's just so lovely to see, because then they start to know Yeah, it's just that when I think back, I had all of my Richard Scarry books as a child. I used to love Richard Scarry so much, but those weren't real. Yes, they were going to the hospital. Yes, they were going to this, but it was the bears and the creatures taking me into the hospital. So those were the fairies. So you can have fairies going into hospital.
I get that. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so
I
there's
mean,
no.
Okay.
So the
All
fairies
right,
can
we'll
take
put
an
that.
arm.
We'll
We
put
have
that
to
one to.
warm up.
We'll put that one to a side. Characteristic effective learning. I mean, if we're looking at the thinking skills, which you've mentioned, having their own ideas, making links, working with their ideas, and particularly with the active learning, about enjoying what they set out to do, achieving what they set out to do. That is so much around creativity, isn't it? And imagination. Yes. You know, if they're going to make models or just, they don't have to make anything, but just experiment with materials, and use their skills and make their houses that don't look anything like a house, and make their dinosaur that doesn't look anything like a dinosaur, but to them it is.
Absolutely.
You know, that's really important.
Early engineers, early paleontologists. So you never know. I was reading an article about, they're asking secondary school students, well, I think in their first year, and asking them, what material could you make? What material could you make a house out of? And they all came up with bricks and this and cement and iron. And one child said water. Making a house out of water. But the child was right, because you can freeze water, have an igloo. It's just, and that's the ultimate in imagination. Wasn't that I think that's incredible.
Yeah, that is.
To build houses out of water. You never know, it might happen. They do it all the time, but is that a potential architect building houses out of water? I thought it was fascinating. So that child clearly has the most amazing imagination. And my favorite thing is, I don't know if you're a Star Trek fan. I'm a Trekkie.
No.
I admit it.
See, I'm not into anything futuristic, scientific, the outer space things. They don't interest me at all. I'd rather watch a factual film, a film on something that's actually happened in real life. This says a lot about. However, I do think I'm an imaginative person, and I do think outside the box. I would never have done, Spark wouldn't have come about if I wasn't somebody that thought outside the box. And obviously what you do every day, you're an out of the box thinker as well. And so I do think I'm creative and imaginative. I mean, I spent my childhood building houses, and actually I lived on a farm. I was able to build houses out of all sorts of rubbish, really, whatever was laying around the farm. And I've continued to do it right through to today when I'm looking for a house to let out. I even had a house on wheels at one point. I had a camper van at one point. And it just strengthens the fact that, whatever happens to you in your childhood, and whatever these children that we are looking after experience, whatever, and it's the opportunities that we give them to do that. And
never dampen their imagination or creativity.
Sorry?
Never dampen their imagination or creativity, because you don't know who's in front of you.
Yeah, and to think where the world is going, we're talking about artificial intelligence writing blogs for us, and writing books and doing all sorts of things, and
sentient.
That's actually taking away. It's almost putting in place something that's actually going to make the whole situation worse for society in later life. However, just for those people listening, I've learned that I haven't learned much about artificial intelligence. I have somebody that does that for me. She writes the blogs. Well, that's not true. She does a lot of the technology things.
Her WD-40 though, if she's a robot.
Yeah. But you actually have to be creative with it. So you might have a robot writing something for your business, or your, you want to tell your life story or whatever. But you have to then change it to be personal. You have to make it your own, because otherwise the search engines won't pick it up.
Yeah.
So it's it. So it's not all lost. We've just got to have the ability to do it.
Yeah. No, and they will. They're getting there. They think that there was one thing that we all use today, and there was that big hoo-ha about it, that they thought it was sentient, something that we all use now.
All right.
Yeah. No. Yes, it will. Yes, we'll see what happens. No, but things like, as I was saying, that the Star Trek, we wouldn't have MRIs had it not been for Star Trek. All these things have come out of that. Tablets, mobile phones. My favorite one, I have to check on this. I was watching it was the last new Star Trek film, and Spock gave his girlfriend a necklace, and it was a tracker, and I'm certain that was an AirTag before they came out. So life imitates art.
I'm just thinking, I used to watch Tintin as a child, which just shows my age.
Yes.
And Tintin went to the moon, so maybe
Yes.
that's where that came from.
Yes, absolutely. I was obsessed by all of these stories. I didn't have a television. I listened to the radio. I was outside. I wasn't a dreamer, I don't think. I was just you built houses. I used to get my Barbies, and I used to put parachutes on them and throw them out the window to see what would happen. Take things apart, play with trains, break things, build them back together.
Okay.
Truly kinesthetic, actually, when I think about it, because that's seeing what happens, but with the imagination. So the imagination of wanting to see the question, what would happen if, that's imagination. That drives science, that drives technology, that drives the future. Without imagination, we are not going to be able to solve the things that we need to solve. And it is down to imagination. So important. And if the children get that imagination, believing in fairies, go for it. Totally. I still think if any time somebody says they don't believe in fairies, a fairy dies. I still remember that from Peter Pan, Tinkerbell. Did you read that?
Yes, I have been to see. I've actually seen it at the theatre.
Yeah. Tinkerbell's very important. Very important. Yeah. You see grown adults with things on the back of their car powered by fairy dust. I wish we could do that one day and not have fuels, fossil fuel.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
But please remember, older children can believe in fairies. It's fine. I don't have a problem with that. Okay. So tell the audience about what you do now, because you used to be a ballet teacher.
Yes. I was vocationally trained, into myself, took 10 years out. Ended up doing a teaching course. I never wanted to teach. I never wanted to do it, Catherine. I was nothing I ever. It was the last thing I wanted to do, and I thought, okay. I was going to do law, and I was going to decide to do a ballet class to see how my back was, because I hurt my back very badly. And I felt that I'd gone back home, and they offered me a place on their teaching course. Did it, graduated. And because I was a little bit broke at that time, I was asked by a nursery to come in and teach baby ballet for 8 to 18-month, 2.5-year-old children. Well, I knew it would be a disaster, but I needed the money. I still went in, but while I was there, the light bulb moment happened that children learn through moving, and the opportunity of engaging the children through stories and linking things to the real world through imagination, through movement. And that's how it all started. And I had to find a way of taking the children off on different adventures. And I love trains. Majority of children love trains. And actually, I spent a lot of time train spotting with my uncle, as you do. And that's how I came up with my little magic train to take children off on these different adventures. That was my bridge between the real and the imaginary world. The train was able to time travel, to take me anywhere I wanted to be, to escape. It's actually escapism partially for me. And it's also nice escapism for the children. You don't know what's going on at home as well. That's why all imagination is so important, because it enables them to act out and deal with these and process feelings that they're having, and movement is key to that. And we know movement helps with endorphins, helps with depression, all of these things. So that's how it all started, and it all just sort of developed and grew from there. And now I'm just going off on lots of different adventures. We've got a new one, African safari with helicopter poo. Hippos helicoptering their poo. That is real. The children will love it, as long as they don't actively do that and smear it on the wall. It's like, but the fun and the experiments, Catherine, from a little bit of imagination, a sprinkling of imagination, just that little bit of magic on everything, on those cups that you have in the Montessori, on all these different things that you do, it just changes and lifts it up for them to become even more engaged than they are already. Just that little bit. And you may have a child that's a bit shy, and it just gives them that ability to be heard.
They forget themselves.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's really, I think it's really important. I still remember I was teaching a class of primary school children, a creative movement session. This was just after the terrible things happened in Paris. And just to give you an idea of how much creativity, how important it is, these children, they asked for a piece of music. I gave them a piece of music. They then started to create their own thing. I said, I'll give you 5 minutes, blah, 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 and let me see what you've done. Come up with a story for me. I let the parents come in, because it was the last day. I let them come in. I always used to let them come and watch the last 5 minutes to see what their children have created. To my shock, slight anxiety, they started acting out everything that happened in Paris, dragging people around and shooting and things like this. And the parents are horrified. And I was going, not me, but look how much they've absorbed from you talking, from seeing the news. They are acting it out to process it. They're using that creativity and role play to process it, to understand it. And I said, you really need to talk to your children about what's happening, because look what they're doing now.
The same, I experienced the same thing with the Twin Towers coming down.
Yes.
And I think that was the first time that really had struck me how parents put the news on at 6 o'clock and their children are watching it. Because we had every type of brick out that we possessed, all the different sorts of bricks, and we basically had a brick week. And they, they built towers and they blew them up.
Processing and understanding. It's really, it's hard for adults to see sometimes, because you can see that they're all these emotions, and that's the only way of expressing it. It's like the children see, they bite you. Yeah, they can't. If they don't have the words, they'll bite you, or they'll do all these things as well. So that's the creativity. That's where creativity should be a little bit higher up on those areas of learning as well, and the imagination.
Yeah, well, as I said at the beginning, I worry about the staff having the creativity and imagination, or the kudos to be able to use it. That they're actually allowed to. It's not. It doesn't necessarily have to be a wall display. That nobody can really. It makes the nursery look nice, but has very little value to the child. It's about how they use their creativity in their day-to-day planning to facilitate the learning the children need, and to foster the invitations to play, so the children want to participate and perhaps play in areas where they wouldn't normally go and play.
No, when I'm talking to teachers about the importance of their creativity, their imagination, and I show them what it's like for a child. You probably won't approve of this, but I show them a piece of music that was recorded for the Muppet Show with Prince, the artist, the Purple Prince, formerly known as. He did Starfish and Coffee, which was actually written for a child with additional learning needs. And he created it for the Muppet Show. And you had, everything was grey. Everything was grey. It was all black and white until they opened up her backpack, and out came all the colour, all this imagination. And that is what I say, that is what is inside a child's head. And that's what they need to free. It's all about if you set yourself free. So they need to feel nobody's watching them. They always feel they're being watched. That I noticed a lot of the younger teachers, when they're younger, they feel self-conscious, they're being watched. And as you see them getting older, they are more confident. They really just focus on the child. And as I always say to them, if you're feeling watched or nervous, you are actually not doing your job, because you're not focusing on the child. If you're focusing,
you're not immersed in what you're doing.
Absolutely. And that should be the first sign that you need to think about what you're doing and actually go, I'm not doing the best thing possible for that child in front of me, because they are the most important thing in the room. Not you, not the owner, the child, not the parent, the child. And I always say that if they start to feel self-conscious, we need to think, what are you doing with the children? How involved are you? Or are you observing them? Because if you're observing them, you're engaged and involved, even though you're not physically doing something with them. But honestly, highly recommend watching that video, Muppet Show. I don't know, have you seen it, Catherine?
No, I'm going to look it up.
I'll send you the link. It is on YouTube. It is lovely. And everyone watches, they go,
I'll try and find the link and I'll send it out in the spiel about this debate.
Starfish and Coffee.
Now, has anybody nobody's made any comments or asked any questions? Please do feel free.
But it's a Monday night, Catherine, and they think it's going to snow. So they're probably out there putting salt on the drive, getting their spades out, getting ready for putting out the winter coats.
No, putting the heating on.
That's true. I have to admit, I had it on all day today.
I've got a rug on my lap, but I generally sit with a rug on my lap. I'm
old lady. We've got builders, so all the doors are open. I'm absolutely freezing. So I'm putting the heating on with my blankets and my dogs on me, and I'm still cold. So I think I've just thought of something else. Actually, we can use our imagination to get points across to children without singling them out, like using persona dolls or stories with a social, that we don't bite and hit each other, but we use our words, that sort of thing. As well. I mean, it's a good job we've got these creative people in the world, isn't it, that can write books and provide these resources for us. However, I can't think of her name. Lynette, what's her surname? Lynette Brooks. She's a schema play lady. I'm hoping that she'll come on as Spark Debate in the future. And she posted something tonight on Facebook or LinkedIn about a child using trajectory schema. And I didn't make a comment, I should have done. But they were just doing them with lolly sticks. We don't have to be providing children with really expensive resources to encourage them to use their imagination. And I don't even know if the child was actually making something, but he certainly, I think it was I would imagine it was a he, that being sexist. He was doing it in some sort of order. He was actually making a pattern with the sticks in a long line. And that's clothes pegs, anything in the room. You don't need to, as you say, you don't need to buy anything. Use your recycling box. Everything.
I mean, that's become much more popular, hasn't it? Loose parts.
Absolutely.
Really, rather than having fixed equipment that's used for a specific purpose.
I know, I'd be terrified if it was my daughter that she always used to put things in her mouth. I'd be going, no. it's like I know, it's that
the stage of development, Gina.
I know. Really I know. I know it's so hard as a parent. But I I do have to admit that when she was little, she had all these lovely toys. I bought her everything. I spoilt her rotten. But do you know what she only liked to play with? Clothes pegs.
The what?
And a tin. She just put them on, round the circle, took them off, went back again. She just did that all day long, putting clothes pegs on every single thing, curtains, everything that she could crawl to, even the cat. It's like great for those first skills. The poor cats.
Okay. Right. Does anybody have anything they wish to add?
No.
I hope you found it useful.
I've enjoyed it.
Yes, so have I. We don't actually spend enough time.
I'm going to send you a fairy, Catherine.
We don't actually spend enough time as professionals discussing these things.
No.
And every single debate, this is, I think it's the 6th one, because we started them in October. Every single debate, I've learned something. It's been really good. So if nobody's got anything to add, I'm going to thank you very much, Gina. I've got some play out music so that you know.
Should we do our dancing, Catherine?
You can do if you like. I hope it comes up all right.